Ever start writing an email and then get completely thrown off by one little word, trying to sound all professional, and then bam, you're second-guessing yourself?
Happens to the best of us.
Today's deep dive, we're tackling one of those words, biweekly.
Oh, yeah, I see where you're going with this.
It's a word that can really trip people up. Like, are we talking every other week, twice a week?
A recipe for confusion, for sure.
Total confusion, right? You send out a meeting invite, and half the team shows up one week thinking that's it, and then the other half the next week. It's a mess. And the worst part,
Yeah.
it's not even really our fault for messing it up.
You're right. English can be a bit sneaky. Obstreperous, even, you might say.
Obstreperous is the perfect word for it. But thankfully, we've got our expert here who's going to help us untangle this whole biweekly dilemma and give us some strategies for actually using these words, well, correctly.
Happy to help clear things up. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head right from the start. That little prefix bi, it's the root of the problem.
So it's not just me then. Bi really is that tricky.
Oh, it's definitely not just you. It's like bi is trying to pull a fast one on all of us. It can mean every two, but also twice in. Talk about confusing.
Okay, so like with biweekly, it could mean every other week or twice a week.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Bi-monthly, bi-yearly, they all have that same double meaning.
Okay, it's all starting to make sense now. But how do we even get stuck with these words in the first place?
Well, the evolution of language is a funny thing.
It really is.
Words change over time. Sometimes they even end up with, shall we say, overlapping meanings. It's enough to make even the dictionary editors throw their hands up.
Wait, really? The dictionary folks struggle with this too.
Oh, yeah. Even Merriam-Webster acknowledges the ambiguity of it all.
I guess we're all in good company then, huh?
You could say that.
So they actually come out and say that?
They actually use that word you like, obstreperous, to describe it.
No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. So what's the story with bywords then?
Well, take biannual, for instance. It should mean twice a year, right?
Right.
But people were using it, or rather misusing it as biennial so often, to mean every 2 years that the dictionary folks just threw their hands up and
Let me guess. They added the wrong definition.
added it right in. It's official now, I guess.
You're kidding. Wow. I mean, I get it. I have to look up biannual every time I see it to make sure I'm using it right. It's one of those words you really need some context for.
Context is key with these words, that's for sure. But the good news is there are ways to make sure we're all on the same page. For sure. And one of the easiest ways to avoid any bi confusion is to just avoid bi altogether.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's your bi-free alternative?
Semi. Think about it. Semi-weekly means twice a week. Semi-monthly is twice a month. No ambiguity there.
It's true. Semi does kind of fly under the radar, doesn't it? But it gets the job done.
It does. But if you do find yourself having to use a byword, well, like we were saying before, context, context, context.
Right. Don't just say bi-weekly meetings. Say something like, we'll have bi-weekly meetings every other Tuesday at 10 a.m. Spell it out.
Exactly. Leave no room for interpretation.
Okay, so that's if you're writing the email. Right.
Yeah.
But what about when you're on the receiving end? You're looking at an invite that says bi-weekly, and you have no idea what they mean.
Yes. A common dilemma. In those cases, just ask.
Just ask.
It's the simplest solution. Don't be afraid to say, just to be sure, when you say biweekly, you mean twice a week, right? Or every other, whatever makes sense in the context.
It's so true. Sometimes we make things way more complicated than they need to be.
We really do. A quick question can clear everything up. People are usually more appreciative than anything when you double check.
Definitely. Saves everyone a lot of headaches in the long run. It's not even about being grammatically correct at that point. It's just about good communication. Right.
Exactly. Being on the same page makes everything run more smoothly. Less stress for everyone.
Amen to that. This whole conversation about bi has me thinking, what other words are out there that trip people up?
Oh, so many. And they can really catch you off guard. Affect and effect are a classic.
Yes. Those two are tricky.
And further versus farther. Don't get me started.
Oh.
Or worse.
No. What could be worse?
Lie and lay.
You're right. Those are the worst. How do you even... Not every time I think I've got it figured out.
They get me every time, too. But hey, it keeps things interesting, right?
I guess so. It wouldn't be as fun if English was easy.
That's the spirit. The important thing is to be aware of the things that can trip us up. Once you know the rules, it's much easier to navigate it all.
For sure. Knowledge is power. So to wrap things up, what have we learned today? other than to maybe give bywords a side eye from now on?
I think the big takeaway is that we can totally outsmart the English language, even when it tries to trip us up with these tricky words.
We've got the power.
Exactly. Using the right strategies can make all the difference.
It's all about clear communication, right?
Exactly. And being aware of the potential for confusion, like it almost makes you wonder, should we just come up with totally new words for these time intervals, ones that aren't so open to interpretation?
Right. New words, who's with me? Maybe we start a petition.
It's an interesting thought, for sure. But in the meantime, just spreading the word about these common mistakes can help a ton.
For sure. All right, listeners, here's your homework. Tell a friend about bywords. Spare them the headache of a miscommunication disaster.
Couldn't agree more.
And if you ever find yourself struggling to remember the rules, come back and revisit this deep dive.
We'll be here.
We'll be here, ready to guide you through the linguistic jungle. Until next time.